At this point, I'd like to welcome all of our guests and our members today. We have a great workshop planned ahead of us, and I'd like to start by reading our club mission statement. We provide a supportive and positive learning experience in which members are empowered to develop communication and leadership skills, resulting in greater self-confidence and personal growth. Now I'd like to transfer full control of the meeting over to our president, Ethan.
Thank you, William. Tonight's workshop is of course, going to be by Miss Kelly Nguyen-Motakef. Is that how you pronounce your last name? I hope I got it at least 60% correct because it looks pretty complicated. But she has been a Toastmasters member for 8 years. Wow, tenure. And is currently the president of her specific club. She has a DTM and is the Youth Leadership Program Chairperson, has a BA in psychology and an MA in education. Currently teaches second grade online and has been a teacher for 10 years. Tenure, but mainly in person. Has been married for 22 years, has 3 children and a dog called Jojo. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I mean, I'm aware that's an anime, but I've never watched it before. She likes to read, write poetry, go dancing, and always looks for wonderful places to eat in her free time. So whenever you're ready, Ms. Nguyen-Motakef, I'll hand the floor over to you.
Thank you, Ethan. Thank you, everyone, for having me as a guest. I'm going to do my typical 5 to 7 minute Toastmaster speech, if I can, to squeeze my lifespan into that. I came to the United States when I was 7. I immigrated from Vietnam. My mom and I were both refugees. When I came to the United States, I didn't speak a word of English. So I guess I'd be the 1.5 generation. But I quickly learned. I worked hard, I studied hard, and I became one of the best students in the class. I'm very proud of that. I even won a spelling bee contest in 4th grade. But throughout all of that time, my parents being the stereotypical Asian parents, I think, they just said, oh, you don't need to do anything else. Just study hard, just get straight A's. You'll be fine. Then high school came along. I realized that my strengths were in English and in Spanish. I told my mom, I think I want to be maybe an English teacher or a language arts teacher. And she said, oh, no, you're not going to make any money from that. What are you going to be, a teacher? Guess what I am? I'm a teacher now, right? She said, no, you need to be a doctor or a pharmacist or an engineer. And I thought, well, I really don't want to do any of those things because they're not my strengths, but okay, I'll give it a shot. So I started majoring in chemistry to become a pharmacist. Then as I took some more classes, I realized I really love psychology. Then I decided to major in psychology, but in the back of my mind, I thought about becoming a doctor because I really enjoyed helping others and being of service to others and my community. I thought, maybe I want to give pre-med a shot. So I decided to do the crazy thing and double major in psychology and biology. Thought, okay, at this rate, I'm never going to graduate. So I scaled back my classes. Basically, I graduated with a psychology major, but I have probably almost a minor in bio. When I met my husband, he was my boyfriend at the time, he noticed that I really loved children. I really loved stories. And he said, you know what? Why don't you become a teacher? You're really good with kids. And I thought about it. I thought, you know what? I enjoy teaching others. Again, I'm very service oriented. I enjoy helping others and making a difference. I went back to school, got my credential and my master's eventually in education. And I've been teaching since then. I really love what I do. I enjoy what I do. I ended up becoming a teacher, much to the chagrin of my mom. But she knows that I enjoy it and I love making a difference and I love what I do. But there was a point when I was teaching I love the teaching aspect, the working with children aspect, all of those parts. But I noticed that maybe because I was a stay-at-home mom for a while, I noticed that it was very difficult for me to talk to my principal or anyone that was in management. I felt intimidated. I didn't have the confidence. That's when I thought about Toastmasters. And I remember Toastmasters because when I was in middle school, there was a youth leadership program. It's an 8-week program. It's a free workshop. And I decided to join. And I thought, you know what? I wonder if they're still around. And I Googled them, and lo and behold, Toastmasters, this year's their 100th year anniversary. And when I Googled them, I found a club near me. I thought, oh my gosh, they're still around. This is awesome, because I was going to take a class and do public speaking or something to improve my confidence skills, my speaking skills. And I found my club. That's why I've been a member for 8 years. I think I do more of it as a hobby, as a way to mentor new members and to help others. And I tell all my peers, I tell everyone, I tell other parents that this is amazing, that I wish I had done this when I was younger, as far as not just that free workshop, but in high school, like what you're doing right now. And I wish that I had done it earlier, when I was a stay-at-home mom, or at any point. I wish that more people would know about what Toastmasters does. And so I want to challenge you to think about what your obstacles are, or what you perceive as obstacles, or what you can turn, what you think your perceived weaknesses are, and turn them to strengths, and turn them into stepping stones that you can overcome those obstacles. They might be cultural obstacles, or they might be gender obstacles. For me, it was a combination of different things, different factors. Being a woman, being an Asian, being a mom. I think I was more, and just my personality, I'm more of an introvert. And joining Toastmasters, I think, helped me to overcome that and to be more confident. But also, when I became more of a leader, I realized that, you know what, my introvert characteristics, they're not negative. It means that you're an observant person. It means that you're a listener. You don't always have to be this outgoing social person all the time, unless you want to be. But you could turn that into something positive. I realized that I don't have to be an authoritarian to be a great leader. You can use your assets, your positive personality traits to be a great leader in your own way. So I want you to think about maybe you have positive traits that you can use to be a great leader. Or maybe you might have a few that you think are weaknesses that you can turn into strengths. So I want you to take this time, and that's how I wanted to lead the workshop, to think about what your characteristics are, your strengths, your weaknesses, that you can overcome if you perceive them as weaknesses, or maybe your strengths. What are your assets that you believe are valuable in a public speaker, or valuable in order to be a great leader? Would anyone want to share? William, how about you? What characteristics do you perceive as your strengths and weaknesses?
I feel like one of my strengths is probably the ability to empathize with other people. When I look at a situation, I tend to look below the surface. What are the person's motivations? And if I deem the person's motivations as being honest and of being benevolent, then I tend, even if they make egregious errors or don't necessarily perform as they should, then I still feel that I understand them. Meanwhile, one of my weaknesses is probably being a little too hard on myself, actually. I feel like sometimes, even if I have met the expectations of other people, I haven't met the expectations of myself. So I feel like that's something to further improve on too. And I see that Janya has her hand raised.
Yeah. I would say my strength is not speaking and observing most of the time, but accepting this class because I speak a bit. And um and my weakness would be not controlling myself. If I want something to eat, I just want it, and I just cannot control myself to stop it.
Yeah, William, I liked how you brought up empathy, because I just did a speech recently in my club regarding empathy and sympathy, and how sometimes they can be perceived as weaknesses. That's what I talked about in my speech. The reason why is because sometimes we think being kind or empathetic or sympathetic is, for some people, they might be seen as weak. But in my speech, I talked about how they can be strengths, because it takes strength and courage and bravery in order to be kind, in order not to lash out or seek revenge or get upset or frustrated. And I think that's a wonderful trait. And I think there needs to be more people who are sympathetic and empathetic.
And I think Rachel's raising her hand.
I just wanted to be the next one to share that. That's all.
Sure.
One of my strengths is that I'm able to relate to people of all ages, and I'm good with kids, and I'm able to like make people like feel comfortable. I guess I have like a welcoming demeanor, but my weakness is that it's the same as William's. I'm too hard on myself. I put a lot of pressure on myself, and I'm always worried about being weird, and I always hold myself to high standards, and most of the time, actually all the time, it's very unnecessary. And I'm trying to work on that, because if I stop, then I'll be more confident.
Okay, my mic didn't unmute for 10 seconds. But anyways, I'm Michelle, and one of my strengths is like I have a voice. I have a place here. I can talk. I can say anything I want. Well, not really anything I want, but like I have a voice. I have a voice to say something. I have the right to. One of my weaknesses is probably like I have major anxiety attacks. Like, they're so bad. Like, I'll worry about one thing. I'll be saying, like, oh, my friend's like, oh, do you want to play some games? And then I'll just have a huge anxiety attack the next day, wondering how the hell to respond to them saying no. Because the problem is, I'm afraid of saying no for some reason. I don't know if that will hurt the feelings. Like, I don't know how it will impact them. So that's one of my strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think part of it is, it could be cultural. I think our parents have high expectations of us. I think it's also our personality. I know I'm the same way. I'm very hard on myself, almost a perfectionist sometimes. And that could be positive, because you are doing your best. You want to do your best. You want the best outcome. But yes, it comes a time when you need to give yourself some grace, give yourself some space, some leeway. And I think that comes with time and learning to be patient with yourself. But yes, it takes time to grasp the being patient with yourself. I think sometimes it's also very brave and courageous of you to share your strengths and weaknesses with everyone, right? But we're in a safe space where we're not going to judge, and we can empathize and sympathize because perhaps we've been there ourselves, or we share the same traits.
I guess for me, it would probably be that I'm very excited and energetic, but my weakness is definitely being really, really lazy. Like I'm like the complete opposite from you guys. You guys are like very hard on yourselves, always pushing yourselves to do a lot or even too much. But for me, it's like, I don't really want to do this because it's too much work and stuff like that. So that tends to always get in the way of, things that I want to do. But yeah.
That's interesting that you said that, Brennan, because one of my best friends, when we were in high school together, I was the organized one, the one that had her homework completed. I had my everything organized in the proper folders and files, etc. And she would put her homework inside her textbook. For example, if it was on page 58, she would tuck it into page 58. When it was time to turn in our homework, she would be flipping through her textbook, looking for her homework. And me, being the proper student, being diligent on time and everything, I had my homework ready to turn in. I would always get frustrated just watching her looking for her homework, because I thought if that were me, I would just be, I don't know what I would do if I couldn't find my homework. But she was just nonchalant about it. She said, "Oh yeah, I'm sure it's in here." She wasn't stressed. She said, "Oh yeah, I know I did it. It's in here. It's somewhere." Then 5 minutes later, she found it. She found her homework. And she said, "See, I knew it. It's right here." Here I am stressing for her. It's not even my homework, right? I'm stressing for her. But she has always been very more carefree, but it didn't mean that she wasn't successful. She was successful in her own way. So I think sometimes you don't always have to be a stress case, right, in order to be this successful person because you dotted your I's and crossed your T's. But you can use that to your advantage by saying that, hey, you know what, I'm a type B personality instead of type A. And sometimes you need to be a type B personality in certain situations and find what works for you. If you still get the job done without stressing, then kudos to you.
All right. Yeah. Thank you.
I mean, I would say one of my strengths is I can learn stuff really quickly. Um, but also one of my weaknesses is then when I try to actually do something, sometimes I get mired in the details because there's a lot of things you have to think about, especially if it's very complex, which sometimes my brain doesn't like.
Yeah, so I would suggest that your you can turn that around and say that you're a detail-oriented person, right? And that's an admirable quality that will carry you far.
Yeah, I would say that probably one of my strengths would be being responsible. Like when someone invites me to do something, I'm always there. Or if I'm with my friends and they're off task, I always like pull them on task. And then when I'm gone, they're like, we had a 40-minute in-class assignment and we totally forgot to do it because like you weren't there to help keep us on task. So I think being responsible is really helpful. But also, on the other hand, I think it also comes with a downside, which is kind of getting stressed about it, like also similarly setting high expectations for myself. It also gets difficult to like control your emotions sometimes and manage your time, which is a downside to it.
So, as we heard from you, there's a lot of winding road to finding passion. So, do you have any advice for how high schoolers can best find their passions?
I'm glad that you asked that because my guiding post, I suppose, my guiding light for a long time was one of my uncles. I have a huge family. I have 8 aunts and uncles. One of them I admired very much. He said that he suggested to me, do what you love. I always thought about that because he became an architect and he was passionate about what he wanted to do. And so for me, it was very difficult because, as I told you, my parents, they wanted me to become a doctor, a lawyer, engineer, very stereotypical careers. And I wanted to do what I loved. I know that in my heart, I want to do something that I love. I know that the other part that I love is also making a difference and making a change and influencing someone, being a role model to someone, or being a mentor. And I think that really drives me. It drives your passion. I think it's very difficult to make that decision because you're at a point in your life where you might be thinking of a career, or you're thinking, of course you want to choose a career that is sustainable, that be economically comfortable, right? But think about in your heart what you also want to do. Weigh your pros and cons. Think about your passions. Yes, you also want to be comfortable in life financially, but I think about, do I want to wake up every day and say, oh my gosh, I have to go to work? Or do I want to say, I get to go to work today? So think about what drives you. And my son's in the background. He's also a high schooler. He's going through that path as well. And everyone's different. And I think in your heart, think about what you want to do and what will drive you to be the best that you can be. So Caleb asked, what would you say to someone that says so-and-so job doesn't make enough money, etc., similar to how you just told us? What would I say to someone? It's definitely very difficult because, especially being a teacher, I get bombarded by, whether it's my family or society in general, my community. I tell them that I'm making a difference, and I believe in my heart that that's what I'm doing, that I am helping my students. I'm hopefully changing their lives. I do talk to other teachers or my peers, colleagues, whoever that I can talk to that we can relate to. I also take strength in my knowing that my grandfather was a teacher and my mother was a teacher for a short time as well. And my grandfather, he taught during the time when the communists were in Vietnam. They were taking over Vietnam, and he did not want to teach the communist propaganda that was around that time. And he decided to quit. And he did a very admirable thing. He did not want to teach the propaganda, so he decided to quit, and he stayed at home and he taught his grandchildren how to read and write. And because of that, my cousins and I, we were already prepared when we started kindergarten. So there are moments, it does take a lot of courage to do what you love. And there are moments when you feel doubtful. But if you can find strength in someone that you know, or someone that you can talk to that can strengthen and give you courage to do what you do and to encourage you to follow your path, then I think that would be helpful. It is definitely very, very hard. There was a question, Caleb asked, what do you teach? I teach second grade. On my license plate, around my license plate, I do have a quote from Aristotle. This quote has been twisted and turned around to be made fun of, unfortunately. So the original quote from Aristotle is, those who know, do. Those who understand, teach. Of course, it's been turned around to say, those who can do, those who can't teach, right? So I really feel really proud of what I do. And I have that original quote from Aristotle on my car. Yes, I do teach second grade, but I have subbed in a classroom to high school students, and it was a very particular high school class where it was with students who were struggling in high school and not necessarily special needs, but I got a chance to teach world history, US history, a little bit of everything. And I felt really proud to be able to do that because my knowledge is so well-rounded, and I was one of those students who studied hard and worked hard. And so I think people don't give teachers enough credit for being or me anyway, to be very knowledgeable and well-rounded. And I think I really prided myself in knowing several different topics. And so I use that to my advantage. And I think just my background, I do try to tell my students about my past, my history, how I came to the United States, my experiences, how my mom and I were attacked by pirates when we were boat refugees. And I love bringing that experience to my students. And I think the other thing that I'm grateful for is that they don't see a lot of Asian American teachers because most of them go to other routes, right? As far as careers. And I had one student who told me, I love that my teacher looks like me. Right. And we don't see a lot of that kind of diversity in certain careers and professions. And so I was very happy to be able to be a role model for her because she said that I look like her. So whatever I can do to help my students, I'm grateful for. Oh, and then John, you said, what if I want to do something that is 99% not possible? And all the people say that it is not possible and every other job is hard. Oh, that's a tough one because I firmly believe in being positive because I'm a teacher, right? Of course, we want our students to be successful, but I also want you to be realistic. And unfortunately, I remember tutoring a student. She wanted to be a teacher, but she wasn't able to pass the teaching test. And I thought, I have to tell her the truth. I have to tell her that it might not be the right fit for her as much as she wanted to teach. Because if you're asking for a tutor, but someday you're going to have to teach this topic to someone, I think I would be being a disservice if I encouraged her. I don't know what happened to her after that, but she was an adult, and I think she felt a little bit downhearted when I told her that I advised her to take still a teaching path, but maybe not necessarily teaching. I think sometimes you have to be honest with yourself that, yes, I want you to try your very best, of course, to do 110% of what you want to do. But I think you also have to be realistic and know what you're capable of. The wonderful thing about being in America is that you do have more possibilities. You do have more opportunities.
If there's no other questions, then I will end the workshop. Then I guess we can officially end the workshop here. And it looks pretty nice. And one thing I liked about this workshop, which by the way is phenomenal, as all workshops are, but I noticed there's a lot more audience interaction. So thank you again, Ms. Nguyen-Motakef, for taking the time to join us today.